Welcome back to the deep dive. Last time we talked about that huge moment, didn't we? When writing first appeared.
Yeah, that fundamental split.
Exactly. It created two paths.
Mm.
The shell, that's the recorded stuff, the knowledge of how to build, how to count.
All the practical things, the structure.
Right. And then the heart, the living wisdom, the why connect, why feel,
Yeah.
well, why be human?
And that initial split, it started small, just marks on clay.
Yeah.
But what we're getting into today is how that gap just exploded.
Okay.
The shell starts getting really hungry. It's not enough to just record things anymore. Now it wants to own everything.
So it moves from being a simple record keeper to something much bigger, like an architect of knowledge itself.
Precisely. This is the birth of the great archive idea. Structure and organization, they become the goal, not just the means. It's like building this giant intellectual machine to capture, totality.
Okay, before we dive deeper, let's bring back that core idea for the season. It really frames everything.
The twin engine metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the blueprint for how knowledge and maybe civilization evolved.
That's the one. So humanity built two engines. One engine of structure built a world. It was the engine of how to record, how to build, how to control.
Mm-hmm.
The other engine of intuition dreamt of a world. It was the engine of why to connect, why to feel, why to be.
And for thousands of years, they ran separately, incomplete.
Exactly. For 10,000 years, they ran apart, each incomplete. This is the story of the great shell of knowledge, the heart that was hidden within it, and the long road to their convergence.
So that's our overarching story.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to track how that shell really scales up, how it goes from writing things down to this ambition of possessing all data in one place like a giant physical archive.
And crucially, how the heart, that intuitive living wisdom, reacts, how it has to adapt, maybe even hide, when faced with this massive structural push.
Encoding its truths in plain sight, as you put it. Okay, let's get into it.
Right, so to really grasp this huge ambition, we need to step back into the Hellenistic period. This is the world reshaped after Alexander the Great's conquests. We're talking, roughly 323 down to 31 BCE.
Okay, the Hellenistic world. Why was that the moment? What changed?
Well, it was the sheer scale, really. Alexander had smashed together these previously quite separate cultures, Greece, Egypt, Persia, even parts of India.
Right, a huge melting pot or maybe a collision.
Exactly. And when his empire broke apart after his death, his generals who set up these successor kingdoms like the Ptolemies down in Egypt, they quickly realized something. Military might wasn't quite enough.
They need something more.
Yeah, they needed cultural legitimacy, intellectual clout. They needed to be seen as the center of the world, not just rulers of a chunk of it.
Yeah.
So the mindset shifts. It's not just about managing local logistics anymore.
It's about defining the narrative.
Yeah.
Controlling the whole intellectual output of the known world.
You've got it. The goal becomes intellectual totality. Possessing all knowledge becomes like a strategic asset. A power move.
Wow. And this is where the Library of Alexandria comes in, isn't it? It's the ultimate symbol of this impulse.
It absolutely is. It's the perfect metaphor for that waking mind trying to build its first massive archive. A physical brain, almost.
We hear so much about the library, it's almost mythical. But it wasn't just a quiet place with scrolls, was it? It sounds like it was an engine of the state.
Oh, absolutely. It was founded by Ptolemy I, Soter, and his successors poured resources into it. It was designed from the ground up as this monumental, state-funded, strategic weapon, really.
A weapon.
Well, an intellectual one. It was part of the temple complex dedicated to the muses. So you have this symbolic link between divine inspiration and pure scholarship.
Okay.
But the real purpose, asserting Ptolemaic cultural dominance, drawing in the smartest people from everywhere, and giving the rulers the best scholarship and intelligence to help them govern. Think of it like the ancient world's biggest national research institute.
And the way they built the collection, that really shows the ambition, doesn't it? That acquisition policy.
Oh, it's incredible. Aggressive doesn't even begin to cover it. The goal was literally to get a copy of every single book in existence.
Every book. How?
Well, the most famous story, maybe apocryphal in some details, but reflecting the mindset, involves the ships. Any ship docking in Alexandria's harbor.
Yeah.
If it was carrying books or scrolls, any written material, it didn't matter where it came from or where it was going. It had to surrender them.
There's confiscated them, like intellectual pirates.
Pretty much. A whole team of scribes would jump on it, copy the text out. But here's the really telling part, the bit that screams, shell obsession.
What's that?
Often, the library kept the original scrolls. The actual physical primary sources.
Wait, they kept the originals?
Yep. And they gave the copies back to the poor merchants or travelers.
Wow. So the
Mhm.
physical object, the scroll itself, was more valuable than the information on it.
Right.
That says a lot.
It says everything about the archivist mindset taking hold. The authenticity, the provenance of the physical thing that became key. It's like valuing the hard drive over the data. They weren't just collecting knowledge, they were collecting the world's most valuable artifacts. Possession, hoarding. That was the game.
And if you're that aggressive, the sheer volume must have been mind-boggling for the time.
Totally. The estimates vary wildly, as you'd expect. Some say 40,000 scrolls, others push it up towards maybe even over 400,000 at its peak.
400,000 scrolls. Just try to picture that.
It's almost impossible. But think about what that represents. The largest single concentration of static recorded knowledge the world had ever seen. All organized, supposedly all authenticated. It was the ultimate human attempt to build a physical database containing, well, everything.
But having that much stuff creates a new problem, right? How do you find anything? It's just chaos otherwise.
Exactly. Possession is one thing, access is another. And this is where we see a new figure emerge, the archivist scholar.
Okay, what defines this new type?
Well, they weren't just readers or scribes anymore. They became obsessed with authenticating texts, classifying them, putting everything into a system, order above all.
Sounds like the beginnings of modern scholarship, in a way. Who were the key players?
Well, the first name you have to mention is Zenodotus of Ephesus. He was the first head librarian. And he didn't just manage the collection, he started shaping it.
How so?
He took on the huge collection of Homer's epics, the Iliad and Odyssey. But he didn't just accept them as they were, he started comparing different versions. He basically pioneered philology, the critical study of texts. He even developed these little symbols, like early editorial marks, to flag lines he thought were fake or added later.
So he wasn't just storing the data, he was cleaning it, establishing the official version, creating the database rules.
That's a great way to put it. He was defining the authoritative structure, which is exactly what the shell does. But the real master of structure, the ultimate organizer, was his successor, Callimachus.
Callimachus of Cyrene. And the Benankes, we hear that name thrown around. What exactly was it?
It was absolutely revolutionary. 120 volumes. It wasn't just a list of books. It was the world's first proper systematic library catalog.
120 volumes.
Yes.
Just for the catalog.
Yep. He divided all of knowledge, or at least all the knowledge in the library, into these main subject categories. Then, within those, he listed authors alphabetically, he gave short biographies, he listed all their known works, often even noting the first line of the text so you could identify the exact scroll.
That's basically the blueprint for every library catalog, every bibliography, every index that came after, isn't it?
Pretty much. It's the shell reaching peak efficiency in the Hellenistic era. The obsession is now totally focused on the how to classify, how to organize, how to store.
And the focus shifts away from what the text actually means, the why.
Completely. The value isn't in the living experience or the wisdom that might have inspired the author. The value gets transferred to the artifact itself, where it came from, how accurate the copy is, and, crucially, where it fits in Callimachus's grand 120-volume system.
Knowledge becomes an object, something to acquire, authenticate, and file away correctly.
Precisely. Intellectual hoarding, but, justified by rigorous scholarship. They're building the ultimate shell, defined purely by structure and possession.
Okay, so they have this incredible structure, this seemingly perfect system for containing knowledge. But could it really contain everything? Did this flawless structure have limits?
Oh, absolutely. And this is where the whole project starts to reveal its massive blind spot. Because when this systematic, structural, categorizing mind, the archivist mind, bumps up against the other kind of knowledge.
The heart knowledge, the Faye stuff.
Exactly. The fluid, living, experiential wisdom.
Yeah.
The system just breaks. It can't compute. It doesn't know what to do with it.
That must have been a real problem for them. If your whole identity is built on having everything cataloged, what do you do with stuff that doesn't fit the categories? How do you file away a ritual or a community's shared memory?
You can't, really, not in their system. Heart knowledge is holistic, it's performed, it depends entirely on context. It just defies those nice, neat, objective, artifact-based boxes that Zenodotus and Callimachus built.
You can't catalog a feeling, can you?
Well, you can catalog the description of a feeling on a scroll, but that's totally different, isn't it? It's like filing a recipe instead of tasting the meal.
Okay, so what did they do? How did the archivists handle this unboxable stuff?
They basically performed a kind of intellectual triage. They took the content of the heart, the myths, the spiritual traditions, the rituals, and they slapped familiar labels on them. Labels that were, frankly, totally inadequate.
Like what?
Well, this living wisdom got systematically miscategorized. It was filed away under these neutral-sounding, almost dismissive headings. Mythology or religion, sometimes even more judgmentally like magic or folklore.
So they weren't necessarily trying to erase it. They just literally didn't have the right filing cabinet. Their system couldn't recognize ways of knowing that weren't based on text or objective facts.
That's it exactly. It's systemic misrecognition. If you couldn't authenticate it, bind it between covers, or give it a neat index entry in the Pinakas, it got shoved into the cabinet marked miscellaneous or curiosities.
And is there a specific example that really shows this filing system in action?
Oh, the clearest, most widespread example is the practice the Romans later called interpretatio Graeca, literally Greek interpretation or Greek translation.
The name itself tells you something, doesn't it?
Yep.
Forcing the unknown into Greek boxes.
That's the heart of it. Hellenistic scholars, especially in Alexandria, were suddenly faced with all these foreign gods, particularly the incredibly ancient and complex Egyptian pantheon.
Right.
Now, instead of spending generations trying to truly understand the deep spiritual nuances of, say, the cult of Isis or Osiris.
Which would be heart work.
Exactly. Instead, the archivist mindset seeks an administrative shortcut. Let's just systematically equate these foreign gods with Greek ones we already know. Let's fit them into our existing cultural database.
Okay, let's break that down. You mentioned equating the Egyptian god Amon with the Greek Zeus. On the surface, okay, both are chief gods. But what gets lost in that translation?
So much gets lost, it's staggering. The Greeks saw Zeus mainly as, this patriarchal figure, a sky and thunder god on Mount Olympus. He's very involved in human drama, often quite impulsive, a political ruler, basically.
The structure of power, like you said.
Right. But Amon, especially in his origins, his name means the hidden one. He was conceived very differently as this self-created transcendent force behind everything. Fundamentally mysterious, unknowable. His power wasn't about throwing thunderbolts. It was about the source of life itself. Concepts like the Ka and the Ba, the soul's component.
Completely different vibe.
Totally different cosmology. So when the archivist writes Amon, see Zeus in the margin, they've captured the name, they've captured the basic job title, Supreme God. But they've completely ignored, or maybe just deleted, the entire reason Amon mattered. His whole spiritual essence as this hidden, immanent reality.
Yeah. So the shell gets the file name, but the actual file content is just gone, erased by the act of classification.
They possess the surface data, the name, a rough equivalent, but they're totally blind to the deep cultural context, the spiritual significance, the why that connected millions of people to this deity for millennia. The archivist can proudly say, we've cataloged Amon, but in doing so, they've sort of neutralized him, made him inert data.
And this wasn't just happening on scrolls, right? You mentioned it shows up in art, even in creating new gods. The shell is physically repackaging the heart's symbols.
Absolutely. You see it etched in stone. Look at the art from the Ptolemaic and Roman periods in Egypt. It's fascinating. You get these deliberate hybrid forms.
Like what?
Well, you might see a statue carved in the traditional stiff, eternal pose of a pharaoh, symbolizing that timeless Egyptian power. But then the face will be sculpted in a realistic classical Greek style with Greek hair.
So it's like the shell taking the enduring form of Egyptian power, but stamping its own fleeting individual face onto it.
That's a perfect way to see it. It's a visual representation of the shell, absorbing the structure, but overriding the inner identity.
Wow.
And the most extreme example of this kind of cultural engineering is the god Serapis.
Serapis. He wasn't an ancient god, was he?
Not at all. He was basically manufactured. A political project. Ptolemy I commissioned him specifically to be this hybrid deity.
All right.
Well, they literally mashed together Egyptian gods Osiris and the sacred Apis bull, representing fertility and the afterlife, with a bunch of Greek gods, Zeus for power, Hades for the underworld, Dionysus for ecstasy and mystery.
Talk about a committee decision. A god designed for maximum administrative convenience.
That's exactly what it was. The goal was totally practical. Create one god that both the native Egyptians and the new Greek ruling class could worship together. Unify the kingdom under one banner.
So the shell is literally taking the most powerful symbols of the heart, death, rebirth, power, mystery, and repurposing them for political control, while filing the original complex wisdom under mythology.
Precisely. The archivist thinks they've got it all sorted, cataloged, even improved by making it more efficient. They believe they possess everything that matters.
The heart, the intuitive stuff, it doesn't just vanish because it's been misfiled, does it?
No way. It just goes somewhere else. It adapts.
Okay, so the shell is busy building this huge public archive, the library, lit by the bright light of reason and classification. Where does the heart go?
It retreats. It moves into the private sphere, often into secrecy, into ritual, away from the state's gaze.
And this is where things like the mystery cults really take off in the Hellenistic world, right? They offer something different from the official public religion.
Exactly. These cults think of the ancient Eleusinian mysteries for Demeter and Persephone and Grace, or the hugely popular cults of Dionysus, Mithras, and especially the Egyptian goddess Isis, which spread everywhere they exploded during this time.
Why then? What were they offering that the official state religion wasn't?
Well, the state religion, which was very much aligned with the shell's values, was often quite cold. It was about civic duty, political order, performing the correct public rites. It was often mandatory.
Bureaucratic religion, almost.
You could say that. The mystery cults offered the opposite. They promised a path to personal salvation, a direct personal experience.
Experience being the key word there.
Absolutely. Their focus wasn't on just following rules, but on achieving a direct, personal, and often profoundly transformative experiential knowledge of the divine.
Okay.
And the Greeks had a specific word for this kind of knowing. They called it gnosis.
Gnosis. We hear that word a lot, especially with later movements. But what does it actually mean, especially compared to the kind of knowledge the library was collecting?
It's a crucial distinction. The shell, the library, seeks objective fact, knowledge that can be written down, copied, passed around, possessed by anyone who can read the scroll. Gnosis is utterly different. It's subjective, it's intuitive, it's relational.
How do you get it?
You don't get it by reading about God. You get it by undergoing a process, an initiation, some kind of ritual or transformation that allows you, the individual, to directly experience the divine reality or presence.
So it's knowledge as a lived process, like becoming part of the story yourself.
Precisely. Often involving symbolic death and rebirth, enlightenment achieved through intense personal experience. You didn't just read the script. The ritual made you live the script. This was the core mechanism of the heart, finding a way to survive alongside the archive.
Okay, so if the Library of Alexandria collected the how, the descriptions, the names, the facts, the mystery cults were preserving the archive, why the kind of knowledge you can only get through transformation?
That's a great way to put it. And some philosophical currents took this idea of gnosis even further, turning it into a really radical rejection of the whole shell project. This leads us to Gnosticism.
Gnosticism, often seen as this obscure, heretical thing.
Yeah.
But in our shell heart framework, it sounds like the ultimate anti-archivist statement.
It really is. It's a profound philosophical dismissal of all objective material authority. The basic Gnostic idea, or at least a common thread, was that this material world, the very world the library was so busy documenting, was flawed, corrupted, maybe even created by a lesser, ignorant, or even malevolent god, sometimes called the demiurge.
Whoa. So if the material world is flawed, then all the data collected from it.
It's inherently suspect. Corrupted data, exactly. Yeah. The shell is just archiving a faulty reality, maybe even a prison. Gnostics often taught that these powers, sometimes called archons, ruled the material world and were actively trying to keep humanity trapped in ignorance, chained to the material.
So how do you escape?
Through gnosis. Through attaining secret, transcendent, intuitive knowledge, a knowledge that bypasses the flawed material world entirely and connects the initiate directly back to the true, hidden, transcendent God beyond the demiurge's creation.
That is radical. It basically says every scroll in Alexandria might be, at best, irrelevant and at worst, a tool of deception. Possession of facts is useless, maybe even harmful, without that inner intuitive spark.
Completely. And this brings us to the real genius of how the heart adapted, the Faye strategy, if you will. They realized they couldn't stop the shell's relentless collecting and filing. So what did they do?
Right.
They started hiding their living truths right inside the very things the archivists were collecting. They encoded the wisdom within the shell's own artifacts.
They used the shell's obsession against itself, like hiding a secret message inside an official document.
Exactly. It's brilliant. Think about the myth of Persephone, her descent into the underworld, her return. It was the core story of the Eleusinian mysteries, maybe the most famous mystery cult.
Right.
Now, the Alexandrian archivist gets a scroll telling that story. What does he do? He files it, probably under mythology, Greek deities, or maybe agricultural cycles, linking Persephone's return to spring. Job done. Text classified. Box ticked.
Okay, seems straightforward.
But for the initiate of the Eleusinian mysteries, that story isn't just a quaint tale about seasons. Persephone's journey, the symbolic death, the time spent in darkness and the underworld, the eventual return to the light that's not just a text to read. It's a script, a map for a profound inner journey of psychological and spiritual death and rebirth.
So the story itself is the key to achieving gnosis.
It's the symbolic pathway. The knowledge isn't in the ink on the papyrus. It's encoded in the experience the story unlocks within the initiate through ritual. The shell possesses the scroll. Kalimic has cataloged it perfectly, no doubt, but it has absolutely no key to unlock the transformative power sealed inside the narrative.
The meaning is invisible to a mind only looking for external facts and structure.
Completely invisible. As the saying goes, the beauty is retained but in a shell of science. The archive holds the wisdom, but it can't read the code.
Which brings us right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The massive, profound irony of the Great Archive. The Library of Alexandria, this incredible engine built to possess all knowledge, actually became this giant monument to misunderstanding everything that truly mattered.
It's the ultimate example of mistaking possession for understanding. The archivist could stand there, proud of his perfectly organized shelves, holding scrolls, detailing every ritual, every prayer, every name associated with the goddess Isis. But the actual core wisdom, the gnosis, that life-changing experience, the why that made millions seek initiation into her mysteries, that can't be captured on papyrus, it can't be cataloged, it can't be stored in Callimachus's 120 volumes.
You used the metaphor earlier, intellectual taxidermy. That feels chillingly accurate now.
It is, isn't it? Maybe a bit grim, but it captures the process perfectly. The archivist finds this living wisdom, the performance, the community feeling, the subjective spiritual life, and the first thing they do is kill it so they can preserve its outer form. They take the text or the statue or the description of the ritual, they mount it carefully in a display case, they write a meticulous label, give it a Pinakes number, and they stand back, proud of the acquisition, completely blind to the actual life that was just extinguished in the act of preservation.
It's like they carefully preserve the instruction manual for bringing someone back to life, file it under folklore, and never realize the mummy in the next exhibit case is the one who needs the instructions. The obsession with structure makes them miss the whole point of the structure.
And that really highlights the fundamental limit of the shell, even when it's operating at peak performance like in Alexandria. Logic, data, structure, the shell is powerful. It built that library, it built worlds. But without the heart, without intuition, meaning subjective experience, all it achieves is possession, never understanding.
The Alexandrian archivists genuinely believed the catalog entry was the knowledge.
They truly did. The stamp of authenticity, the correct shelf mark that was knowing for them.
And that feels like a huge warning sign for us today. We're the descendants of those archivists, aren't we? When you look at the archives we're building now, these unimaginable digital databases, the endless fire hose of information, the algorithms sorting and classifying every click, are we just repeating the same mistake?
That's the absolutely critical question for today, isn't it? Think about the systems we value now. We collect unbelievable amounts of data metrics on everything: human behavior, communication, clicks, likes, shares.
Welcome Shell project.
Right. But are those metrics, those data points, actually capturing the meaning behind it all? We have the names, the dates, the algorithms, the terabytes of data. But are we, just like the Alexandrian scholars, systematically misfiling the messy, subjective, intuitive human reality, shoving it into boxes labeled noise or unstructured data, or, maybe even digital folklore, just because our current classification systems can't handle it?
Because it doesn't fit the spreadsheet. We push for the shell's desire to quantify and categorize everything, and maybe, in doing that, we risk cutting ourselves off from the very purpose of all that information in the first place.
The archivist in Alexandria had the most complete collection of information in the world, theoretically. Yet, arguably, they failed to grasp the deepest human truths sitting right there on their shelves.
So just to recap where we've gotten to in this dive. We've seen the shell scale up massively, becoming this archive obsessed with structure, possession, facts.
And we've seen the heart forced to adapt, encoding its living truths into the very myths and rituals that the shell was busy collecting and misfiling.
The two kin, structure and intuition, they end up further apart than ever before.
The library was this amazing structure of knowledge, yes, But it was hollowed out by the very ambition that built it. It achieved collection, but it walled itself off from transformation. Hashtag tag 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 Zeke 5. Episode outro.
Okay, so let's leave you, our listener, with a final thought to chew on from all this. The Library of Alexandria. Yeah. This incredible monument to the power of fact, of recorded knowledge.
Yeah.
It was packed, absolutely filled, with texts that held keys to profound human wisdom. Wisdom about death, rebirth, the cosmos, personal transformation. Yet the archivists themselves, totally devoted to the catalog, obsessed with the physical object, the scroll. They couldn't even see the locked rooms anymore. They possessed the keys, but had forgotten they were keys.
So think about the world you navigate every single day, this digital ocean of information. How many locked rooms are hidden in plain sight within the vast digital archives we're constantly building?
Yeah.
How much profound insight, intuitive truth, unquantifiable human context are we maybe filing away right now under junk data or user comments or anomalies, just because our current systems, our algorithms, our shells can't measure it or assign it an objective value?
It's a sobering thought. The shell of knowledge grew stronger, its logic more complex, the heart of humanity beat louder, its wisdom more urgent.
But the bridge between them was not yet built.
The archive was missing its why.
The dream was missing its how.
The two kin, still strangers, continued on their separate paths, not yet knowing they were part of the same whole.
And next time, we follow the shell as it evolves again. It moves from just passively archiving knowledge to becoming an active tool for reshaping the physical world itself. We're calling that phase the mechanical hand.
Sounds fascinating. Until then, keep digging, keep questioning, and thanks for joining us for this deep dive.